We're proud to bring you another episode of Retiring Well this week here. First, John and I are going to talk about 401k plans, new, current, and old ones. Are there some out there you maybe forgot about? Start having conversations about that and how those are planning for your future. Next, important considerations about asset allocation. You may have heard that terminology. It's stuff we like to use as financial advisors. What does that mean, and what are some of the things you should be thinking about? Then we're honored to have a special guest on the show this week, Heather Bruce, a local attorney here that specializes in estate planning here in Northern Michigan, and sharing her insights on some of the stuff she's seen out there that retirees and estate planning activities need to have their eyes on. And to wrap up the show, guarding against Social Security thieves. Man, what are some of the concerns about that and the challenges that they're bringing towards retirees and those alike?
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well, plan to retire well.
Welcome to another segment here of Coffee Talk. Art Canfield, John Torbett, senior partners here at Centennial Wealth Advisory and longtime friends. John and I were both born and raised here in Traverse City, grew up together, attended the same elementary school, same middle school, same high school, roomed together in college, and now find ourselves business partners here in the financial advising world, which is great. Conversations have changed over the years from trading baseball cards and sports to now talking about 401ks, John. Where did time go?
Dream come true, Art, I tell you. So yeah, it is funny looking back, and as we think of investing, we used to think those baseball, basketball, football cards were going to be our retirement plan, but now it's transitioned, pretty much 401ks and IRAs and that.
Right. I think my dad actually just was hitting me up this weekend if I could come get those out of his basement. I think I'm going to put them off longer because they're not really worth much.
So yeah, as we look at this and we start diving into these 401ks, I actually just recently was visiting with a woman. She's 38 years old, recently divorced, and she had this old 401k, and she just sort of said, "Hey, what do I do with this?" And so first thing is we just sort of took a look at it, and she was wondering. She sort of said, "Well, I think it's not getting as big a returns as I would have liked." And so when we dove into that, we sort of found, wow, within that plan, you have 30% of your overall allocation is invested in international stocks. And she had no clue about this. And there's your reason right there as far as the underperformance. Lately, as you look at the markets, as far as domestic equities versus international equities, domestic equities for about 14, 15 years have been leading the way. And so these international equities have been dragging the portfolio down a bit. But ultimately, she sort of said, I really don't want to leave this money under my old employer and all that. I'd rather just transition on. And she was looking for advice. So that's where Centennial Wealth Advisory was able to, basically our team, help look at that, not just from an investment perspective, but start talking through some different tax planning ideas and diving into what does insurance look like and all those different areas that come up within a retirement plan.
Absolutely, John. When I think of 401k plans, and kind of almost the timeline of how those happen for people, just as we joked earlier about how fast time goes and times change, oftentimes, maybe even for you think down to that time, you're new to your employer and they throw all this paperwork in front of you. And one of the things is to enroll in contributions for those 401ks. If you're fortunate enough to be an employer that offers with something like that, and you pick some allocations and you put some money in, and that's a great start. You're putting money away for your retirement and your successful future. But many years all of a sudden have passed. Maybe you've changed jobs a time or two, and you have these languishing accounts out there that you get a statement every quarter or every year, and you kind of, you look at it, that's right, I got this money sitting there, that's from that. Or even sometimes it's funny, we hear people they almost completely lose track of them. They don't know what they're in or stuff like that. That's on you. That's your responsibility when you have those 401ks, especially ones that aren't even in an active employer that you're with. You've been separated from service, they call it. So that's an opportunity for you to make sure those are maximizing, make sure they're fitting in your plans. We joke on the show oftentimes that a retirement plan is not just your 401k statement. And that's especially the case on an old 401k when very few people, if anybody except yourself, is looking out for that for your best interest.
Yeah, the other term that maybe you've heard of is this concept of an in-service rollover. So this is within, say, a 401k plan where you're currently contributing into this 401k, but certain plans will allow where it says, hey, you can take X amount of dollars or percentage of your 401k and roll it over into an IRA, Roth IRA, and essentially open up maybe the different investment options. Because a lot of times you may look on your 401k and they give you a menu of investment options. Maybe there's a couple dozen mutual funds for you to choose from, but if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, maybe you want more options. And so that's where you can do this in-service rollover. Sometimes it happens early on, sometimes you have to wait till 59 and a half, or sometimes it's simply when you're separated from service. But all in all, different options to consider.
Absolutely. So if you're sitting out there, you haven't looked at your 401k or you have some old 401ks out there, give us a call. One of our advisors at one of our offices in Cadillac, Gaylord, Petoskey, or Traverse City can sit down with you, review those allocations, review what your retirement plans and your goals and dreams are so you can plan to retire well.
If you are nearing retirement or already retired, we invite you to an exciting and informative live event with a complimentary gourmet dinner to help you plan to retire well. There is no cost and no obligation, and dinner is on us. Information is power. Let us help you make educated financial decisions, such as understanding Social Security do's and don'ts. What year-end tax planning opportunities should you consider? Is your financial plan still on track? Alphabet soup with retirement plans. What should you be using? Asset location versus asset allocation. Which matters more? We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial professionals, specializing in retirement planning and serving all of northern Michigan, with offices in Traverse City, Gaylord, Petoskey, Cadillac, and Manistee. Call 888-608-5825 or register online and choose the date and location that works best for you. Tuesday, September 9th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Wednesday, September 10th at the Hampton Inn and Suites in Manistee. Wednesday, September 10th at the Perry Hotel in Petoskey. Tuesday, September 16th at Slate in Traverse City. Wednesday, September 17th at Treetops Hunters Grill in Gaylord. Or Wednesday, September 17th at Vera State University in Big Rapids. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend, with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and tends to fill quickly. Call 888-608-5825 or register online to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well.
As a financial advisor, we talk a lot about diversification and the importance of being diversified between these different asset classes. But how do we determine how much to have in stocks, how much to have in bonds or cash or alternative asset categories? So we're going to spend some time going through today is just some different thoughts on how to be diversified, but also how do we position ourselves between these different asset classes. So the first thing we want to think about is what's our time horizon for these investments? You know, if we think about just a day-to-day, looking at the S&P 500, it's about a 50% probability if the stock market's going to be up or it's going to be down. So really not much better than just flipping a coin. But as we zoom out and we say, well, what if we have a 10-year history? Well, now there's a 97% probability that that asset class, being the S&P 500, is going to be higher. So it's really important that we be thinking about what's the time horizon for these investments. So recently started working with a couple that came in from watching our TV show. They had about $50,000 to invest, and as we sat down and started to talk about their goals, it turns out that this is money that they're potentially going to need for a home purchase within the next year. Okay, well, if we're thinking about a shorter term, that's going to really change our asset classes we want to be positioned to. We probably don't want to be all equities with that portfolio. Yes, that's been a great performing asset class, but if all of a sudden, you know, that asset class goes down in value, it's going to have an impact on that short-term goal. So when we're thinking about our asset allocation, diversification always is key, but now we need to start to think about, well, when are we going to need this money? And that's certainly going to have an impact on which of these different asset classes we want to start to explore. So the next thing is, well, starting to think about our risk tolerance. Not just saying a number, but we want to start to visualize and actually see that number. So the question I always pose to individuals as they come in and meet with us was, when was the last time you took a risk questionnaire? No surprise, the answer is very rarely has someone ever said yes. They've taken a recent risk questionnaire and their assets are aligned with that innate risk tolerance. General rule is this rule of 100. So if you take 100 minus your age, so let's say I'm 60, 100 minus 60, that tells me I should have about 40% equities or stocks and 60% bonds. That's just a starting point though. But we want to think about is stress testing. Well, what does that look like in good and bad market environments? So I built out just a rough portfolio. I said I'm 40% in S&P 500, 60% US aggregate bond index. Let's say I have $250,000 investing. Well, when I back tested that and I ran this Monte Carlo simulation, what I found was there's about a 95% probability that portfolio over the next year could be up $41,000 or it could be down $26,000. So there's certainly a more return potential. But if we're thinking about that downside, if I'm going into retirement for the next year, how am I going to feel if I'm down $26,000? On top of that, I'm starting to think about taking distributions. That can start to erode our portfolio pretty quickly. So when we're thinking about risk tolerance, it's not just saying a number, it's, well, let's visualize how that actually impacts the portfolio and are we comfortable with that? The next piece is we don't want market conditions really to dictate our overall asset allocation. What I mean by that is if we look at the market, the S&P 500 again, there's certain times where it's been down a lot, certain days, but if we zoom out and we made a decision on just that one-day activity or the short-term volatility that we've seen recently, we're going to be able to miss out on a lot of returns. So, the market has a lot of volatility. There's going to be periods where it's going to be down, but over time, again, if we have time horizon and time on our side, we have a lot more appreciation potential here. So we want to be thinking about is not just looking at the bad, but also not chasing the market in good markets. So like right now, having 2 phenomenal years in the stock market, a lot of people are wanting to have more equity allocation. We've got to be careful with that. We need to be thinking again about not just chasing the market, but positioning our asset allocation based on our risk tolerance and when we're going to need the funds. The last piece is I say stocks, I say bonds. These two asset classes, though, they go a little bit more detailed. When we're thinking about stocks as a whole, there's a number of different sectors we want to be thinking about. Same with bonds. There's a number of different maturity dates, a different type of bonds. All these are going to perform differently. Specifically stocks, what we see a lot is individuals come in and they're, say in a 2035 target date fund, which is what I have illustrated on the screen. Well, if we're retiring in 10 years and we're over 20% international exposure, that may be more aggressive than we want to be. So we need to start to actually look at the pieces to the portfolio, not just the bigger picture allocation and how each of these pieces work together, and then again, align that with our risk tolerance. So again, the last piece is here, we certainly want to sit down with you. Let's take a risk questionnaire, make sure your portfolio is aligned. Actually see if you're diversified by these different sectors, by these different asset classes. And then as always, we want to build out that financial plan, build an alternative plan, and then stress test that plan. So let's take it a step further, not just think about I'm 60-40 and I'm good. Let's get behind the scenes and make sure that portfolio is actually aligned with when you're going to need the money and your overall risk tolerance.
So we're here at the Father Fred Back to School Shoe Event. The shoe event is to get kids ready to go back to school with brand new shoes, socks, school supplies, vision screening, and even prescription glasses if they need. The whole idea of this is to get kids ready for school, ready to learn on day one. The foundation has been here for 36 years, providing essential needs to people in our community. We rely 100% on volunteers, community donations, and our collaborative partners. Centennial Wealth has done so much for us over the last couple of years. They're just one of our partners helping us do this work. So the Back to School Shoe event has really grown over the years. Just to put things into perspective, in 2020, we served just under 300 children. Yesterday, we actually served 319 kids all in one day, and we're actually doing this for 2 weeks, so we're expected to serve about 1,600 kids for this event alone. We now go off-site. We're in 5 counties. We take the whole show on the road. So we are funded 100% by community donations. We accept no state or federal dollars. We rely on individual donations, small grants, and small community foundations. The Back to School Shoes events goes back as far as I could see, but I can tell you just in the last 5 years, we've not just doubled it, we've actually quadrupled it. So in the past, it was always done here on site, which is fantastic for people who can get to us. But it's those outer counties in the 5-county region. Some of those families just can't make it to us, transportation barriers, things like that. So we're now taking it on the road, and that's why those numbers are so high. We're just trying to reach those kids that are the hardest to reach.
My name's Kara Main, and I am with Vision to Learn, and we are here at Father Fred doing the Back to School Shoe Drive. We are a part of this. Every year we come up to make sure that kids are able to be screened for their glasses. If they fail their screening, we get them on to the clinic here, which is outfitted with our doctor and our optician to be able to do a full exam and pick out glasses, in which we then mail their glasses out to them. So we'd love to have you guys come out to the Father Fred Foundation. They're here usually 2 weeks every year. This is my 5th year being a part of this, and I love seeing the growth and the development of the Back to School Shoe program, and I can't wait to see what we do with it in the future.
The work we do is not possible without the partnerships that we have in the community and our volunteers.
I'm excited to have Heather Bruce from Marshall & Bruce Law Firm here with us, and Heather and I have known each other for probably 15 plus years, but Heather, talk a little bit about the number of years you've been in the industry and all that.
That will age me,
Yeah.
John.
Okay.
Thank you. But first, thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been an attorney in the Traverse City area for 20 years now. I just celebrated my 20th year last November of being sworn into the bar in the state of Michigan. So my specialty, or our areas of focus for our law firm, are estate planning mostly. Probate avoidance is kind of what we call it. Also trust and probate administration after someone has passed away, and some of those attendant issues such as business transfers and real estate transfers.
Perfect, and actually it's been 20 years now for myself at Centennial Wealth Advisory, so I'm there with you. But want to talk a little bit about property deeding. I mean, a lot of times people have, obviously real estate can be sometimes somebody's primary asset, but a lot of times people like to do it themselves, and what are the dangers there? Yeah,
so my joke, I always say, you could YouTube how to change your oil, or maybe my husband the other day YouTubed how to fix a snowmobile that broke down, way back in the woods behind our house. There's certain things that you really shouldn't try to do yourself, and estate planning, deeding is one of those things. Some of the mistakes I've seen, or some of the things that have happened over the years when people have tried to do that themselves, is I get a lot of clients who say, well, I have a farmhouse and my husband passed away a few years ago, and I just went and added all my 5 kids to the deed because I wanted it to go all to them. And that's one of the big kind of no-nos, right? When I see that, sometimes we can undo that, sometimes we can't. That's a problem for many reasons, one of which might be Medicaid planning. If the client ever needed to apply for Medicaid benefits for long-term nursing home care in the state of Michigan, that could cause some serious problems, as well as potentially unintended consequences, such as a son or daughter getting divorced, or someone causing an accident and hurting someone. That's some liability that we wouldn't want our client to have.
Sure.
So we typically would want to keep our own assets to ourselves.
Yeah.
Another example, perhaps years ago, we had clients in the Grand Traverse County area who tried to do a nice thing by adding their adult son to their deed for a large parcel of land that they had. At the time, the property was paid off in full. They had worked very hard to pay that off. And unbeknownst to them, of course, life happens. Their son got married first to someone and then got very sick and then predeceased them. And what could have cost them maybe $250 to have an attorney prepare the proper deeding to accomplish what they intended actually resulted in about $250,000 of having to buy out someone who they really shouldn't have had to do from their own property. So those are very very bad things that happen when you try to do these things yourself.
Yeah. So a $250,000 mistake is essentially what I heard from that. And so with that, I know a lot of times in conversation, people bring up this concept of a ladybird deed. And so if you don't mind, share a little bit about what that is and why it could be beneficial.
Sure. This term is ladybird deed. You can look it up. Google tells us it's related to LBJ, Lady Bird Johnson. So you can look that up. It's kind of an interesting story. Maybe a better way to think of a ladybird deed is a transfer on death deed, or a way that you can actually name a beneficiary on your house instead of giving away any interest while you're still alive. A true, properly drafted ladybird deed can help for many things, avoiding unintended property tax uncapping issues. It can also address some of those issues that we talked about earlier about not adding someone's name to property while you're still alive, and those liabilities that might come with that. It also can still allow that client to qualify for Medicaid if that's something that he or she would otherwise be able to qualify for.
Sure. And so as we're talking through these things, and in any last examples of mistakes that you've come across or areas that you're saying, hey, just be paying attention and
just in general, I would say I hear this a lot. In doing this all these years, I have a lot of clients who come to see me and say, my sister or my neighbor or my friend told me, or someone I go to church with told me to get a trust, or told me my will is all I need. My question to them is always kind of jokingly, but where did they go to law school? Where did your neighbor go to law school? Oh, they're not an attorney, right? So again, there's certain things in life you can probably figure out yourself. This is not one of them. Yeah. So just in general, a review of what you have maybe, and that should be at no cost. Most attorneys do that if you just want a review and some advice. Sure. And that would be my best advice.
Perfect. And so again, if you're in a position where you're not sure about what your plan is, feel free to reach out to Heather and her team.
Social Security Insights. Understanding the who, when, what, and how of your Social Security retirement benefits. Join us for a complimentary live breakfast event on Saturday, October 4th at 8:30 a.m. at the Park Place Hotel, Grandview 1 Conference Room in Traverse City. The presentation starts at 9 a.m. and is hosted by our team of advisors. Important topics include, how does the One Big Beautiful Bill Act impact you? What is the taxation on your Social Security retirement benefits? How can you maximize your retirement benefits? What happens to your retirement plan upon the death of a spouse? How can you prepare now for the looming Social Security insolvency? Attendees will be offered the opportunity to sign up and receive a free personalized Social Security analysis and strategy report. This is a no-cost and no-obligation event, and breakfast is on us. Register online or call 231-995-9575 to reserve your seats today. Don't miss our complimentary live breakfast event, Social Security Insights, on Saturday, October 4th at the Park Place Hotel in Traverse City. Click or call to reserve your seats today. After more than a decade of stock market growth, volatility jolted investors back to the harsh reality of occasional market pullbacks in the investing cycle. Download our free white paper, Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective, for an in-depth analysis of historic lessons and time-tested investment strategies. Simply go to cen-wealth.com, scroll down and click the link Navigating Market Volatility. It's all about perspective, to receive your free copy of this valuable and informative resource.
How to guard your Social Security benefits against those thieves, right? Those thieves really do love to target seniors and those Social Security benefits. Back in the olden days, it was a little simpler for them to do that. Basically, they just stock your mailbox and wait for those Social Security checks to come in the mail and then go and try to cash them and so forth. Nowadays, with everything going digital, it's a little bit harder, but the thieves have got a little bit more intuitive as well. So, you definitely want to make sure sure that you're guarding those benefits. Social Security office doesn't really say how much is actually fraudulent in the system, but the Inspector General report states that about $20 million goes missing from Social Security benefits, and that's something that you really want to avoid. So I want to talk about what you can do to combat that and safeguard your benefits. The first step is going to be to set up online access, a profile, if you will, with the Social Security Administration. You just go to socialsecurity.gov and set up that profile. I know you're probably thinking, well, that's kind of counterintuitive, getting your name out there on the web, right? But this is really the best place to go to make sure that you're staying up to date with any kind of changes that is going on with your benefit information, okay? Because you can access that once you get it set up at any point, okay? So you can check it daily if you want to. Wouldn't recommend that. But you can really stay on top of anything that changes. So I would highly suggest that the first step you do is go and set up that online profile, okay? Now, if you're one that you're not very tech savvy and so forth, and you don't really want your information out there, that's fine. You can give Social Security office a call and check on those benefits and so forth from time to time. Obviously, much easier if you do set up that profile. Another great reason to set up that profile online is because not only does it allow you to check your benefits and so forth if you're one that's taking them, but if you're on the younger side and you haven't started those benefits yet, it really allows you an avenue to start that planning process. So, maybe you're 5 to 10 years out from retirement and you're starting to get, look into it a little bit more and you want to dive into those numbers. Well, having that online access to see your Social Security benefit allows you to see, okay, what is my benefit going to be at age 62, at age 65, 67, and full retirement age at age 70. So it allows you to plan. Another great benefit that's kind of buried in that profile is the ability to go back and look at your earnings record, okay? So that earnings record is what the Social Security Administration uses to determine what your benefit is actually going to be, okay? So I always encourage my clients to double check that earnings record. Go back and look and see, okay, in 1992 I made X. Yeah, that's right. Or maybe you're looking back at your record and you see that, hey, there's a couple years in there where it was showing no income in the middle of your career, and maybe that's not right, right? Those 0 years in your earnings record can really screw up your Social Security benefit in the future. So you want to make sure that that is very, very accurate so that you're getting the benefits that you deserve, okay? Here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, not only do we do investment planning, tax planning, estate planning, health insurance planning, but we also do income planning, okay? And a huge piece of the income planning puzzle is that Social Security benefit, okay? So we will walk right beside you, help you determine which age is actually the best age for you to start Social Security. And I can't tell you one age is better than the other because it really is dependent on what your particular situation is. There's so many different variables that go into it. And here at Centennial Wealth Advisory, we offer a free, no obligation consultation where we will tackle that Social Security question. It is probably the biggest question that I get asked in the Gaylord office. So don't hesitate. Give the number on the screen a call, schedule that free, no obligation consultation, and we'd be happy to help you plan to retire well.